What's up, everybody? This is Nick from P2W Fantasy, live here on Thursday, May 13th on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter with my co-host for Skrip 2 Ships, Stephie Smalls. And we got a good show ahead of us today. We're going to be talking some NFL news, some murky situations, and then hopefully get into some advice for people doing their rookie drafts right now. But before I talk about anything with Stephie, I want to make sure that get a chance to introduce Stephie. Stephie, can you let everybody know, of course, where we can find you on social media and what's been up outside of you traveling across the country right here?
Well, right now you can find me in Colorado.
There you go.
My brother is graduating from college, which is a little surreal to me, having my baby brother finally graduating from college. So my mom and I, she's actually hiding in the background right now. We're here to celebrate with him. You guys can find me, as always, on Twitter at Stephie Smalls with 3 L's. And just the usual, the schedules came out, very exciting stuff. We still know nothing about Aaron Rodgers. And then that's been pretty much it.
That's awesome with your brother. So is it just the two of you then? Are you the oldest?
The two of us.
Awesome. Especially, I saw the video you posted on Twitter. It seemed like he was caught off guard a little bit by you just hopping in and asking for a ride, I think it was. So that was very cool.
He was so surprised. I also was supposed to come last week and it kind of got messed up. So he didn't think I was coming at all. So he was so confused when I got in the car.
No, that is awesome. I want to start the show today, of course, by saying this podcast is partnered with Fantasy Points Media Group, which is part of Fantasy Points. Again, fantasypoints.com, where I get all of my information for podcasts and articles. I've actually been dropping a lot of random comparisons and positional statistics this week with some graphics that I try out. I'm not really good with the Photoshop stuff, but I try, and I get all the information from Fantasy Points. So do check that out if you're looking for a one-stop shop, fantasypoints.com/subscribe. My promo code to get a discount, 21WIN10. So, Stephie, we'll dive into that the schedule at some point in here, but just briefly, without giving away too much, were you pleasantly surprised by some of the games? Were you does it get you excited? Is it kind of whatever? What's it to you when it comes out with the schedule?
I think there's some really fun games coming up. I'm so excited about week 1 even. Darnold and the Jets. Come on. There's just some good matchups. We're going to get some really, really good football. Very, very excited.
Yeah, and not only are we excited, but the players are excited too, and we'll talk about this a little bit, but even Tom Brady's out there cracking some jokes about the upcoming schedule. It's like when your high school friends meet your college friends when he refers to the Bucs versus the Patriots this year, which should be a lot of fun. So again, today we'll talk about some NFL news that we've heard a lot about and Stephie and I's opinion on that. Then go into some murky or some questionable situations and finish with some rookie draft pick advice.
Play to win, no fear to give. I feel but I can't forgive. I go all in this time, yeah, I won't regret. I'll pick the best on trip, they don't understand. I play to win, yeah, I play to win, I play to win. Yeah, I play to win, I play to win. Oh, play to win, I play to win. Yeah, play to win, I play to win.
Okay, so had some NFL news that broke to a degree this week or the week before. Some interesting topics here. So to start us off, a familiar name. That's hard to say. Tim Tebow reuniting with Urban Meyer. So Urban and Tebow go back to the Florida days where they had a record-setting year for college football. Tebow won the Heisman in 2007 and went on to play 2 seasons with the Broncos and a season with the Jets. A career of 17 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. But the curveball here is Tebow's not coming back to play quarterback. He's coming back to play tight end. And I have a quote here from Urban Meyer himself saying, "I have one job, and that is to win games with Jacksonville Jaguars. If Tim Tebow or Travis Etienne can help us win, then that's my job to get them ready to go to play." That was in a CBS article. So, Stephie, big news. The reason I want to bring this up, though, is because I'm sure, a lot of fantasy analysts, and you and I have a strong opinion about this, but I've seen a lot of screenshots in some home leagues and things like that where people are scramming to their waiver wires and grabbing Tebow and putting some dollars on him from their fab. So I guess my big question to you is, why? First of all, why did they sign Tim Tebow to be a tight end? And two, does this have any sort of fantasy relevance? Because some people really think it does.
I applaud Tebow. I think that this is a very brave move. I think that this experiment is, I don't know that it's going to go bad. I just don't know that it's going to go well. I don't know that he's ever going to get to a point where it's something that you should be super interested in fantasy. Am I one of those crazy people that went out and I had a spot and I'm going to take Tebow because I think I'm funny? And, I'm in leagues like the Chaos League where I could force someone that loses to me to have to take him and start him next week. Yes, I'm going to pick up Tebow. I'm starting to not I get Urban Meyer. I love him, and I think he's fantastic. And the ETN move, I liked. I think that's great. But now he's starting to lose me a little bit. It's I think it's more to bring a vet into the locker room. I think that's kind of his role. He did play quarterback too, so you have a rookie quarterback there. I think there is something to say about that. I think this is more of a culture move than it's necessarily to win. But I did listen to an interview with Urban, and he saying I saw that he wasn't there for the workout to evaluate him, which was a little weird. But they said that he was in the best shape anyone's ever seen. He's in really good shape, and they had him go back, work on some things. He came back, and he is learning quickly and listening, and he looks fantastic. So all the power to them. I think it's an interesting move overall. I don't think he will get to a point where he has a lot of fantasy relevance, but we've seen crazier things happen, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. It's Urban's got the invite to the party being, Jacksonville, and he's asking the host, hey, can I bring my friends with me? I feel like he is, like you kind of alluded to, he's trying to build kind of a culture that is his own. I mean, he brought the running back that was tied to his new quarterback. He's bringing he drafted Farrell out of Ohio State, his tight end also, who was one of his guys, and now he's bringing in Tebow. I saw some weird comments. Some people said, he just loves football, this guy. And other people said, well, Tebow just loves being a story. And I don't know what to take of a comment like that. But at the same time, looking at a guy who was a Heisman winner, who was playing with the Mets at some sort of level, and then he's coming back at 33 years old. He's coming back, and he's probably jacked and in great shape. He's just a freak athlete. I think for fantasy leagues, I'm not going to say he's going to have a ton of relevance, but it's going to be interesting, that week 1 or week 2 where Tebow just somehow, I don't know, runs the ball or catches the ball, makes a big play, right, and then a lot of people want him, So are you, outside of your Chaos League, which you might have to just give us a Spark Note version of what that is, outside of that league, no interest from you, or minimal interest?
No, again, and I think if he was coming back in any other position, I wouldn't have interest. I think I'm only interested because he's coming back as a tight end, and we see the tight end position and what it looks like across the league. And, maybe it's I could see him you're going to have to be really good at what weeks you play him. I don't think it's something where you're getting consistency out of him. But if there's a week where you feel good about it, to 11 points, he gets to 11 points, I won't be shocked. But people say he's not make the roster. I think he's a little ridiculous. I don't think he's getting brought in to make the practice squad at that age and with his history. But, I think it's a little please do not pick him up as your tight end one. He should be a backup to a backup. Yeah,
that's a deep league play right there. But I don't see any sort of world where Urban Meyer is going to bring this guy in. Not that he's the only one making a decision just to cut him. That wouldn't be too good of a look for a guy he has so much history with. But definitely an interesting story. And I do want to shout out some of the guys in the chat. Got our guy LQ, Troy King, Buddy Shotgun Fantasy, who's Colin, Will. A lot of guys popping in the chat. Really love that. So Tim Tebow, interesting story. Big curveball, because I don't think anybody expected him to be stepping in as a tight end. So we'll shift over. So we had the former quarterback turned tight end. Let's shift over to some more NFL news, but for the wide receiver position. So Julio Jones again in trade talks. I didn't catch a lot of it, but I believe you were live on a show talking about the same topic. I caught a little bit about it, but figure we touch on it here for our show. So with Julio Jones, if Julio Jones was indeed to get dealt, my first question would be to you, Stephie, and I have a pretty set answer here for myself. But if he was to be dealt, who would be affected the most in a positive or negative way, however you see it? If you had like one guy that comes to mind, like this guy is going to have a direct effect to Julio leaving, who would it be?
So it's funny because the first thing that comes to mind is Ridley. But historically, Ridley does better when Julio's on the field. So I kind of have a hard time saying that because I'm like, can he fully step into that receiver role? But I mean, Atlanta has to come up with money somewhere. They don't even have enough money to pay their rookies right now. So the money has to come from somewhere. Something has to give there. So is it going to be that Julio contract? They kind of have the wide receiver depth to make that move should they want to. But Julio is such a staple there and he's a part of that franchise now. So it would be hard for me to imagine they move on from him, but it's not going to be shocking because they have to find the money. And, they've got depth on the offense to move him if they want to. And they picked up even a wide receiver. They picked up, what's that kid from Arizona State pretty late in one of the rounds. So, and they already have a bunch of guys. Look at the guys on their roster. They have wide receivers. And, Ridley is a wide receiver one. He can very easily fill that role. So, I don't know. I'm a little torn on it. I kind of like him getting moved, but
yeah. I can like you. I can see it happening. I can see them keep it. I wouldn't be surprised in either fashion because obviously this offense, they went and grabbed Kyle Pitts. This offense wants to continue to be dangerous. You kind of mentioned it before the show. This offense might give teams a hard enough time to stay in games, even if their defense is not up to par, just because that offense can be high flying. The guy I think is going to have a lot of boosts in his value, and he'll be that big trending guy on sleeper, I think, is Russell Gage, just because we saw a lot of big games out of him last year. I'm just going down the line here. Week 1, 9 catches for 114 yards, 20.4 points. Week 14, 5 for 82, 18.76. Week 15, 5 for 68 and a touchdown, 17.8. And then the last game of the season, week 17, 9 catches for 91 yards and a touchdown for 25.2 points. Gage had 6 weeks of 15 or more fantasy points. So this guy, when given the volume and the opportunity, actually performs. And I think if Julio's out of the picture, obviously everybody's like, oh, that means the world for Ridley. But like you said, Ridley does well with Julio on the field. So I think it's going to have to be another guy stepping up. And we know Kyle Pitts will be involved, but I like Russell Gage a lot. You mentioned Darby.
Late. In the startup I'm doing, I'm getting Russell Gage very late right now.
Oh, super late at the end.
I don't understand. He's someone that definitely gets slept on very universally because I'm picking him up in every startup in these very late rounds. So he's someone that, first of all, pick him up whether Julio stays or Julio goes, because when one of these guys inevitably does get hurt and miss time, as Julio is known to do, Gage is normally the one that picks up the slack. It's actually not normally Ridley. Ridley does produce better. I don't know what it is about that, but he just produces better when Julio is on the field. So I think you should have Gage. If you like this offense, Gage is a better option to have kind of than Ridley sometimes because of the fact that Ridley does better with Julio.
Yeah, and again, for fantasy purposes, you look at, like you said, where you're getting him in a draft. He's at the end of the drafts. Ridley, on the other hand, is probably going to outperform him. I'm sure we both agree to that. But at the same time, you're paying a higher of a dollar price. And I think when it comes to this for fantasy, a lot of people love to jump and say, this affects this person. But like you started off the segment here about, you have to look at how players perform with and without that person. So, people look back to Antonio Brown and Juju and how good Juju was with Antonio Brown versus how he was without him. Same thing for Ridley. Not that Ridley does bad without Julio, but he does good with him on the field. But Gage, on the other hand, like we're talking about, when he's given that opportunity, it's different with Julio out of the picture. So
absolutely.
Like so Falcons fans, obviously, you said it before, Stephie. They love Julio, and I'd be the same if I was a Falcons fan. I mean, the guy's a legend. Do you think they should, if you had to say yes or no, should they make this move to get rid of Julio? Is it going to break the Falcons here?
No, I think they have to. The more I was on my show with the beat writer, who Michael Rothstein is fantastic. The way he covers NFL is awesome. He's an awesome follow on Twitter. A really, really genuine, nice guy too. He was with the Lions and just started with the Falcons, but even him breaking down the numbers to me, it's like they have to figure something out because of the fact that they can't even pay all the rookies. Obviously, there's ways to move around things, and I understand that, but you kind of know what you have to pay as a rookie unless it's someone like Kyle Pitts, who is obviously going to end up getting paid higher. So I think for the Falcons, and this, Julio leaving is actually a move that is better. Like we talk about, like planning for the next 5 years instead of tomorrow. So like removing Julio now, I think is a better plan than waiting to move Julio. I think it's sad and upsetting. It's exciting to see where he might end up. But I think for the Falcons, this is a better move because I don't know who else you move, how you move the money to like make sure everyone gets paid. Because they're in a crap situation. Like they're broke. Like
that's tough. It's tough if you need to build other pieces of your team. I mean, again, people kept talking about their defense all the time. And the minute this happened, this is exactly what you get when you have any sort of trade talks. You get these sort of graphics that come out, and the different spots that he can actually go to. Not sure which ones here are actually realistic, but with Julio, I agree they should make the move too. And a lot of people would say not, because is their offense better with Julio? Of course, you have another guy who can make plays on that offense. But at the same note, if they can address other areas by moving the money and getting something maybe out of it, I agree. And what's important too with this Julio potential trade is that if Davante Adams was traded from the Packers, the offense is completely different. If A.J. Brown right now gets traded from the Titans, offense is different. I mean, you go down the list, Stephon Diggs from the Bills, completely different. Julio Jones from the Falcons, does it take a little bit of a hit? Yes. Will they operate? Absolutely. It's a different scenario.
Every time he gets hurt, right? Like he's not injury prone. It's just Julio Jones misses games. That's the bottom line. He misses games. So I think they have enough depth on the offensive side. Like Matt Ryan has plenty of options with or without Julio, and they've proved that every week that he's not able to play the game. So you hate to see it, and I know it's going to really hurt Falcons if it happens, but I think it's maybe the best choice for them. And I'm excited about the Falcons. I was telling you before we got on the show, like the Falcons are a team that are getting like a little bit slept on, but they have a quarterback that exactly what you're going to get almost every single season out of. He's not mobile, but you get the yards elsewhere from him. And I think just look at the weapons now, and then you add someone like Kyle Pitts. They've made it so that offense is very strong. Their defense is their problem. That will be their issue. But if they play those teams that, you can kind of pull together an okay defense, you're looking at some wins there. So I think they're in a good position. I see them having a better record. They're not going to go 4-12 like they did last year. I just don't see that happening.
And I think John kind of alluded to it in the John McGlynn in the chats. Send him somewhere nice. Send him somewhere nice. Make a nice deal for
the Patriots. I think would be a very fun option for him. I would love him on the Patriots.
Yeah. I mean, just don't send him to like a wasteland somewhere where he's gonna be pissed off for the rest of his career and then retire mad. But good points there. No, nobody needs that.
Or why don't you send him to the Packers and then you keep Aaron Rodgers happy?
That was going to be actually a little bit part of the segment later about Aaron Rodgers. I was going to throw that in there. I love that for potentially making Aaron Rodgers happy and having a nice weapon for the Packers. As a Bears fan, I say absolutely not. Keep him out of our division.
Right.
But yes, all right. So we touched on it before the show started. The schedule. I was guilty. You asked me, how's that Bears schedule look? And I said, you know what? I looked at the big picture versus my own picture. So I have to start looking specifically at my own team over the big picture. I like to look at the full scheme of things at times just to see like, hey, some of these running back schedules look easy at the end of the year, or, vice versa, things like that. But my question to you, just to keep it super brief, super to the point here, what's a game that stands out to you as, man, I cannot wait for this game to happen?
Oh, boy. Well, I can't wait for Tom Brady to play the Patriots week 4. I think that's a blast. I love that. I think that's awesome. Not that these are like fantasy relevant games. I think fantasy relevant from what I've seen, the Eagles and the Cowboys have a fairly easy schedule. So I think that's something to keep an eye on for their skilled players. That doesn't mean that they're going to win those games, but I think that there's some games in there where they could really eat. Those are like those two teams did stand out to me, obviously, as an NFC East fan. But I mean, there's so many good matchups. Like even Sam Darnold, I can't wait for Sam Darnold to week 1. How great is that? Week 1, he's going to play the Jets, and I hope they kill them. I hope for Sam Darnold, they blow them out of the water.
That would be nice. I feel like a lot of these games have like the biggest backstory, and we're months away from it. I feel like we have these like 30 for 30s that have not even been a thing yet, based off of some of these storylines. We have revenge games. We have games of guys that, I wrote down the Bills Chiefs as one of the games. The Chiefs knocked the Bills out from going to the Super Bowl. I mean, there's a lot of games like that.
I'm excited for the Chiefs and the Browns to play week 1. I could see the Browns winning that game. I am excited. Like I might put my money on the Browns that game and think about it ever since I saw the schedule. I think the Browns could easily come on top. That would not surprise me in any fashion. And how crazy would it be? And I'm pretty sure the Chiefs haven't lost a season opener since like God knows when. But how crazy would it be if they started out with a loss? I think it would change the narrative of this season that we're already seeing, especially coming off of that Super Bowl loss. So I'm very interested to see how that plays out. I also would love to see the Steelers lose week 1, that's another one to change the narrative a little bit. But there's some really, really good football, especially week 1.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think that these games are just like a fresh slate for a new season, but so many games, again, have these backstories from the year before, a lot of changes in the league. It's going to be interesting. A game I wrote down, and it was a Bears game, actually, so I do have the bias here. But week 8, this game is on Halloween. So October 31st on a Sunday on Halloween. It's the 49ers versus the Bears. So my thinking is, if for some reason Trey Lance and Justin Fields are not the day 1 starters, I think by week 8 they will be.
Probably.
So I think they both are going to face each other. You got a rookie matchup. You got Justin Fields, who fell. He probably should have went way higher than he did, versus Trey Lance, who's on his new offense. So I think this might be a very interesting game just because of the narrative of, hey, 2 first-round rookie quarterbacks in their first season. Maybe one of them just won the job by week 8. That'll be interesting to me.
Yeah, I also just will make a comment. I find it really rude that they put the Giants to play in prime time against both the Chiefs and Tampa Bay. Like, could we have maybe, like, of course, like, you couldn't have Washington play them at that point. It's just like the Giants have to. But I would love to get a W out of one of those. But of course, when I saw this schedule, I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Not again. Because we got, Tampa Bay game was like probably the worst last year, and it was on Monday night or Thursday night, whatever it was.
They might be setting them up for, hey, if you win one of these, your fan base is going to go absolutely nuts.
I hope so.
Maybe. That's the intent there. All right, so we talked about some fun things here with the NFL schedule that is coming out. Now let's talk about some not so hot of topics here. So I called this segment Murky Situations. What's murky? Murky being not fully explained or understood. Not good. We'll just put it on that. So the first one is Aaron Rodgers, hot topic. I actually have a little clip to play here. I broke down the timeline. A lot of people said that I was missing some things, but on TikTok, you only have 1 minute to do it. So here's my Aaron Rodgers timeline here. Aaron Rodgers timeline. 2020 NFL Draft, they take Jordan Love in the first, A.J. Dillon in the second. That's a QB and a running back, and they do not address the wide receiver Aaron Rodgers needs. July 2020, Aaron Rodgers, Danica Patrick, break up.
2020 NFL season, 48 touchdowns, league leader, 84.4 QBR, league leader, 121 passer rating, league leader. Aaron Rodgers is the MVP. February 2021, it's confirmed that Aaron Rodgers is engaged to Shailene Woodley, and that is confirmed by Adam Schefter. Big news, Rodgers hosts Jeopardy! Right around the 2021 NFL draft, Rodgers says he wants to either be traded or else he will retire.
All right, so I try to break it down as good as possible. I had some graphs and things like that, but I just didn't have the time to put them out. A lot of up and downs for Aaron Rodgers. He has some super happy moments. He has some moments he's pissed off. He's got some turmoil in the organization. I think he was calling one of the owners, like Jerry Krause. There's a lot of things going on with Aaron Rodgers. So, Stephie, my question to you is, with Aaron Rodgers, will he be a Packer? Will he play? Will he get traded? Give me your first set of thoughts here on what is going to happen with Aaron Rodgers.
He's done this before, though. So that's where I kind of am like, is this just another, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I think, first of all, I just found out that he was engaged to, however you say her name, who was on the show when I was growing up, and she was a teenage pregnant. I don't know what the situation. I used to watch a show all the time, and I couldn't believe that they were engaged. I had no idea. I did find out that she has family in Colorado. I think she
Interesting.
Here. So look at me saying here. I'm such a world traveler. So I think that's an interesting component. I think Broncos and Raiders would really be the only teams that we could probably have a discussion about. I would imagine Broncos would probably is what it sounds like would be the biggest interest. But I also saw, I don't know if you saw the Pat McAfee interview where he basically was like, the media will say whatever they want just to make a narrative out of it, blah, 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 and saying how basically every NFL newscaster that comes out with these things is making things up. I don't know what's going on. I have no idea. I think it's probably more towards he stays because that's how we've seen this narrative play out. But I think he's ready to be done. I would be fed up too. They should just fire some of that front office that he doesn't want there anymore. You keep Aaron Rodgers, in my opinion. I think that's a no-brainer. And we play the Broncos the first week, so I pray to God he does not go to the Broncos. But
that would be rough.
If he's on the Broncos, those Jerry Jeudy shares are gonna skyrocket. He has what he needs over there, so I feel bad for Mr. Luck, but it would be a great placement for him.
Yeah, we mentioned Julio. I mean, maybe that's part of the incentive. Hey, listen, like you said, maybe we'll get rid of these 2 guys or 3 guys, whatever the case is that you don't like from management. We're going to bring you Julio Jones for a go all for it year because they were so close last year, and just give him a big incentive because I'm sure he wants to win. I'm sure he's sick of look what happened in the playoffs. Terrible play calling. He wasn't as supported as he should have been this year going in. And that's what he has to show for it. I mean, he's a Hall of Fame quarterback that has 1 ring. But yeah, I'd be interested to see, I guess post June 1st, if they trade him at that time, they'd have a reduction to their cap charge. I don't know the logistics of that, but I guess June 1st is a big date to keep an eye on because there's less of a penalty for trading him. But yeah, like you said before, we've heard before that he was mad. I mean, obviously after 2020 NFL's draft, but he came out and he was an MVP. So with Aaron Rodgers, I guess the Broncos, the 49ers, and the Raiders have all shown a lot of interest. I think even on draft day, the 49ers were trying to make a move, which is very interesting, especially since they had a top 3 pick.
I will say I do not like the picture in Green Bay without Aaron Rodgers, though. That scares me for those skilled players. I just don't love it. I don't know why.
So you're telling me that me claiming Blake Bortles for free on waivers was not the best move?
I think it's very ambitious. And I think that, again, just like we're picking up Mr. Tim Tebow, I don't know. I just don't see that going very well. I think that a lot of times Aaron has held this team together. They're sound there always, but he's a guy that makes plays. Like, he changes the whole narrative for a team. So I get a little weary on what happens because obviously they went out and signed Bortles. So Jordan, let's just be serious, looks like crap in practice. Like, that's what that means. I can't believe they took him where they did. Like, looking back on that alone should be a fireable offense if you're signing Bortles now. So just fire someone, keep Rodgers, find a way to pay Julio or someone, and just keep the dude happy.
Yeah, I mean, they could have taken a lot of decent wide receivers there. We saw how many guys were good this past season that were rookies that could have been taken at that spot. He would have been happy at that time. They also just a weird random fact. They cut Jake Kumaro, who was not the greatest wide receiver, but I guess Aaron Rodgers vouched for him. And after he vouched for him, they cut him. So just weird things like that with him. So again, it'll be interesting. I think it's very much his personality to not be quiet about, his feelings. And I think after an MVP season and a career he's had, he has a right to do so. So
yeah, I don't really believe the retiring thing for 1 second. That part I don't believe. I will be very surprised. I think what he wants is another ring. So for him, what he's going to do is try to find another ring, however, the best way he can get that. So if the Packers can make that landscape for him and provide him what he needs to get another ring, he will stay in the Packers. If they fail to do so, he will demand to get traded and he'll make it happen. It's Aaron Rodgers. Someone's going to take him.
Enough said. It's Aaron Rodgers. I don't care if he's 45, 65. All right, so we'll shift over to the running back position. We talked about a murky situation with a quarterback that has been a big part of news. Let's talk about some running backs. So crowded backfields going into 2021. I want to talk about this because, again, a lot of people are doing startups, but the primary play for fantasy football for your average Joe is just redraft with your buddies, right? So this will be interesting for redraft. We're going to focus on redraft. You're going into 2021. Let's look at some running back rooms. So I got a quick little picture here. So if we just look at this, the 49ers, the Patriots, we have the Bills, and we have the Texans. There is a lot of dudes that were once dudes or could be dudes on these teams. We're looking at the 49ers, Jeff Wilson Jr., Mostert, Hasty had some sort of a role at one time. Gallman, I think, is left out of that picture as well. Patriots got a handful of guys, the Bills, and then the Texans. So, Stephie, I'm gonna break down just some very brief and quick notes on all of these backfields. And my question afterwards is going to be, which backfield are you completely staying away from come 2021? So, starting off with the Patriots here. Damian Harris, 5 weeks above 10 points. He had 1 week above 12.5 points, though. Sony Michel, 16-point week and a 22.6-point week. That's about it. Ramondre Stevenson was a fourth-round selection. So those three guys, along with the pass catcher James White in the Patriots backfield. Shift over to the Texans. Phillip Lindsay was the RB13 in 2018. Mark Ingram, a year later, was the RB11 in 2019. David Johnson this past season, weeks 15 through 17, was the RB4. So these guys were guys at some points as of recent times. Buffalo Bills last season, Singletary and Moss are kind of meh. I mean, nothing too hot to talk about either one of them. Singletary had 9 weeks under 10 points, 3 weeks above 15. Moss had 8 active weeks under 10 points. Matt Breida's in the system. The goal line back is Josh Allen. Go to the 49ers now, the last team here. Mostert, hot as RB7 the first 2 weeks. We go to the other guy, Jeff Wilson, the last 3 games scoring in the 20s, RB4 the last 2 weeks. So Mostert, RB7 the first 2 weeks, Jeff Wilson, RB4 the last 2 weeks. Now they take Trey Sermon out of Ohio State in the 3rd round. Wayne Gallman, who was once a Giant last season, was actually very good. People slept on Wayne Gallman's actual production. Wayne Gallman, weeks 7 through 13 this past season, was the RB6. So that span of games, RB6. So a lot of guys I just threw out some numbers at, Stephie. my question to you is: you are going into your home league redraft league. Which backfield are you saying I am not touching any of these guys in?
All of them.
I'm gonna take a sip because I'm just like, ugh.
Yeah, it's really gross. I think that there's I see glimmers of hope in two players I think people are lower on. One is Damian Harris and the other is Moss. Obviously two different backfields, but I'm a little bit higher in them than your average Joe. I think that Moss, there was so much potential there, and I think the injury really put a bad taste in everyone's mouth. I think there still is Breida, just stop picking up Breida. We need to get over Breida. We have to all
He's still alive. He's still alive.
I broke up with Breida last year and it felt so good and I highly recommend it. I also broke up with Philip Lindsay. I'm done with them. That doesn't mean that that's what you need to do, but I'm breaking up with them because I personally can't take the inconsistency. It's just not my jam. So I don't know. They're all a mess, kind of. Sony Michel is another one I think you stay away from. I think did Damian Harris and Sony Michel have 2 relevant games each? I'm pretty sure that's it.
Yeah, I think Damian Harris, again, 1 week above 12.5 points. Sony Michel had a 16 and a 22.6 point week. And a lot of people love Damian Harris, but one guy loves Sony Michel, and that's Bill Belichick. So I always get confused on that.
Love him. I think all of these teams, another one of my bigger issues is they have a lot of mouths to feed. These are some teams with a lot of very good players too. The 49ers, for example. I just don't know how they divide up the work there. I don't know how that's even going to be possible to divide the work there. And Gallman is... Listen, I was very upset. I love Gallman. He's someone that no one's going to really pick up. And if you're doing a redraft, you could probably get him on waivers sort of thing. So these might be teams where you'll see a lot of people fade these guys. And then it might be something where you have to see how week 1 and week 2 go so you can see how the scheme is working out and then maybe go grab your guy in waivers, or maybe it's someone you're keeping on your bench to see how it goes because you think the potential is there. Moss is probably someone I would pick up and put on my bench. Mostert, I would consider putting on bench, see things out and then maybe play him. But I don't know if any of these guys I'm starting.
Yeah, with me, before Lindsay and Mark Ingram came to the Texans, David Johnson is not a guy in Dynasty you're going to be so high on, but seeing what he did the last few weeks, you're like, hey, this team is going to be in shambles this year. Maybe David Johnson can have some sort of relevancy, but now you add some guys that are also guys into the mix, and that's complicated. The 49ers are so interesting because some of their ADPs are still kind of high and you're taking a chance. So that's going to be kind of risky at times because Trey Sermon, again, shiny new piece in the system. People are going to take him a little bit higher than some of the other guys in the system because they see him as the guy that might be the next RB1 in that backfield. But at the same time, looking this past season, Mostert was very good at the beginning. Jeff Wilson was very good at the end. I actually thought Jeff Wilson was going to get the keys just because he ended the season very good. But I think for your redraft leagues, it's all going to come down to price. I mean, if you're going to take these guys early and take a chance, you're being very risky. You also don't want to, waste 2 roster spots on saying, hey, I think they might use Mostert in Sermon, so I'm going to take them both until they use one. I think like Stephie saying, you might have to wait that week, and if guys are available and you see, hey, they started off and Trey Sermon got 20 touches in week 1, then you might spend your fab or something like that. So I agree with Stephie on this is if they're still floating out there, see what happens week 1. If you want to take a dart throw on one of them and put them on your bench to see the usage, that's fine, but you have to be careful with reaching on some of these guys, especially if they're competing with so many other people.
Yeah, definitely. And these are not guys I'm talking I'm not even thinking about these guys till the 6th round, maybe. These are guys that are gonna fall, and they're falling even the startups I'm doing now, which I know is obviously a different setting, but some of it still holds true. Especially in redraft, the nice thing is you can still kind of take those older guys and not feel as guilty about it. Whereas Mostert, I'm not taking him in a dynasty startup. If I have him right now, cool. I'm kind of stashing him. I'm not going to get anything for him. I don't think you'll get any like much value out of it. So you might keep him around, keep him on your bench and see if you can stick him in for a game and maybe get some points out of him. But he's not someone that you're going to get any value, and he's not someone that I recommend taking in a startup because his value is going down.
Yeah, I'll be careful on that point too. For those that do just play in Dynasty, Mostert is going to be an unrestricted free agent. I'm pretty sure after the season, he's 28 years old. He'll be 29. I don't think a lot of people are going to touch that. Same with Jeff Wilson Jr. I think he's going to actually be a free agent. He's a lot younger. I think like 4 years younger. So Trey Sermon in the future for a startup might be on his own with a Wayne Gallman. I don't know his contract, but it's so different playing these crowded backfields in redraft versus Dynasty. So I think if you're a fantasy player listening and you're kind of casual about, hey, this is how I draft in this versus that, two different beasts when it comes to crowded backfields.
Very much so.
When it comes to let's shift over to the wide receiver position with the wide receiver room. So we talk about, running backs by committee and, the complications with that. With the wide receiver position, the terms that I hear all the time are, crowded wide receiver rooms, too many mouths to feed. These narratives that are stamped on teams like the Bengals now, Steelers, the Cowboys, who have multiple guys that can catch passes and be playmakers, but people are concerned that, hey, I don't want to take one of these guys or the third guy or the second guy because, again, too many mouths to feed. Stephie, when it comes to crowded rooms for the wide receiver position now, what is your approach for that, and what's your views for having a system where there's multiple guys that are making plays?
Yeah, I think we touched on it a little bit last week because this is something that I'm like kind of big on. It's okay to take, like, if there's 2-3 really good wide receivers on an offense that's productive, great, go for it. If it's a non-productive offense, for example, like my New York Giants last year, if you're going and taking these guys thinking that you're going to get production out of them while they're, forcing the ball to the same two people, whatever, or if it's, they're on the field for zero amount of time, they're playing defense the whole time, you're not going to get any production out of anyone. But if it's someone like, I hate even saying the Steelers because I'm a little weary about how their season's going to go over, but Claypool is still like, don't get scared to take Claypool because, what's his face is there. Why can I not think of his name right now?
Deontay, Juju, James Washington.
Juju. I couldn't think of Juju's name. I can't believe that. But don't be nervous to take Juju. I've tried to forget about Juju. Obviously.
You're it was gone. It was gone before this podcast, and I forced it back on you. It's back.
You can take Claypool still, even if you have Juju, they can be productive. They've shown to do that sometimes. But I wouldn't be scared to take Claypool because Juju is on the field. The Bengals is a little bit of a different story. I think they have the potential to be very productive. I just think that Boyd maybe ends up getting the least production. But again, you don't know. It could go another way. But I think we're going to see a lot of chase out of that backfield, especially you're linking him up with his old guy. And I think that chemistry you're going to see it across the league and all these teams that did that and paired their quarterback back up with their wide receiver. But it's okay as long as teams, as long as it's a productive team like the Bills, one of these teams that actually plays offense a lot. If it's a team that has a crappy offense overall, no, you're not going to get production out of them.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, and I think that you have to look at what's the volume like. I mean, on a team like the Cowboys, for instance, a lot of people were, I'm not a big Michael Gallup guy before CeeDee Lamb came, just to be honest. And he's very good. He's just not one of my guys. But if you look at the Dallas Cowboys before Dak's injury, how much volume did the passing offense have? A shit ton, right? So if I'm looking at the offense and I see a guy slipping, I'm not as concerned versus a team that, hey, they're winning a lot of games. I mean, look at the Dolphins, for instance. It's not the same sort of wide receiver room, but people in fantasy were like, why is Tua not throwing the ball a lot in some of these games? And the answer was they're game managing because the offense doesn't have to be this high passing offense. For some other teams like the Bengals, they're playing from behind a lot. The Steelers just couldn't run the ball, so they're throwing nonstop. You have to look at the state of the offense and then weigh out, hey, where are these guys going in drafts? Where can I take these guys? And, are the targets going that way? You talked about Boyd. A lot of people will talk about Higgins in that offense. It'll be interesting to see where the targets go. I think you and I are on the same page with Chase. I think the targets are going to go to him. That's Burrow's guy. He's extremely talented. Does Tyler Boyd being a slot guy help his volume? Does Higgins making the bigger plays help his? So a lot of factors that come into this, but I don't always buy into that too many mouths to feed narrative, just plain and simple black and white, because team to team, it's not black and white at all.
Yeah, it's not. And a lot of it, like, that's part of, like, your analysis should be, like, even a basic analysis, just for, like, your average person playing fantasy that's not as obsessed with it as you and I are, is just, like, look at the state of the team. Like, it's okay to go ahead and, I will just use the New York Giants like I always do. Like, if you want to take Shepard and Galladay, that's great. You can do that. You can keep Shep on your bench, but be aware of the offense. Be aware of what defense they're playing. Well, how is the situation going to play out on the field? And a lot of it just depends on what direction they're going. Are they to run the ball a lot because that's the type of defense they're playing? And those are the biggest ways. And I think that can be a huge advantage for people playing, is like, you look at the bigger picture, because sometimes the answers are there more than they are. And just like, it's not as cut and dry as playing Zeke this week every time. Like, there's sometimes a little bit more than that. You have to look at who are they playing this week? What's the O-line looking like? Who is out this week? Those are big factors into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So there are a lot of factors. And I guess the big point we're getting at here is, when it comes to crowded rooms, look at the big picture. Don't just say there's too many mouths to feed, because having too many mouths to feed, we talked about Julio and Ridley earlier on in the podcast. Those guys both being on the field was actually great. It wasn't like, oh man, Ridley is now a top 3 wide receiver because Julio's gone. It's actually the opposite at times. When both of those guys are out there, they both make plays. They both help each other draw attention from defenses, things like that. So great points all around there. So we got a little less than 15. So the last segment here I want to talk about is Dynasty rookie drafts. So you and I talked about in our first episode for our Skrip to Ships set of show here. We talked individually about certain players from this last draft class and questions we had. We don't have to dive super deep into any specific player here. I want to talk about rookie draft picks. I was just in a live rookie draft this past weekend with some home buddies. And it was great. It was awesome. The way that it operated was unexpected. It was super active that day. A lot of trades going on, things like that. I have another one this weekend, just talking about me personally in a home league where we are only drafting rookies. So at this time, everybody's texting and harassing each other about picks right now. So I have 2 sets of questions, 2 different ones here.
Okay.
So my first one, what is your advice for those who want to acquire draft picks right now? So you're about to have your rookie draft. You want to get into the first round or the second round, whatever the case is. You don't have the picks that you want. What's your advice to those people who are actually looking for those picks?
I'm going to admit I suck at this. Like, this is probably something, like, if I were to say one of my bigger problems is acquiring picks. I think because picks, and this is the one thing. So if I could give advice from someone who has a hard time acquiring picks, actually, is don't be afraid to, like, those are gold. Rookie picks are gold. It seems like not a lot when you get that offer and it's like a first round and a second round. And it's like, okay, but I'm giving you so-and-so now. Okay. But I promise, like, this year I was in a rookie draft and I didn't realize, like, over the past, 3 years, one of our league mates the dude had the whole first round almost. Like, I'm
Unreal.
telling you. So it's like
planning for the future.
Those, it pays off in the long run. So don't be afraid when you do get a trade offer, like from someone who sucks at acquiring picks. And I think it's because I see it and it looks like it's just like a 102 and for 2022, and I don't feel like getting anything, but it does pay off. So I would love to hear your advice on acquiring them because I am not great at it.
It's so my advice right now for next year for people is you have to do this much earlier than this time of the year, because as soon as that rookie actual NFL draft happens, everybody's eyes get big, right? We see the actual team, jerseys are out, people are excited. So trying to acquire the actual draft picks is very hard, because me as a personal player, unless somebody is giving me a great, phenomenal offer that I can't refuse, it's tough for me to be like, all right, yeah, I had my eyes on, for me, I'm drafting Kyle Pitts everywhere. I had my eyes on Kyle Pitts, but yeah, you know what? I'll just trade him for the low right now. It's not going to happen. So first off, try to make these acquisitions earlier. Second off, though, again, people want in these rookie drafts to draft. We had a draft this past weekend. The guys that came, we had a good time. Everybody's having some drinks, having it was like a party half the night too. But at the same time, nobody wants to show up and not draft, right? So you have to actually convince them to trade you. So if you want to acquire picks from somebody else, the first thing you do, look at their team, identify the team need. What's the position that they are needing? They need this position. How do you address that position? And then you have to send them a good offer. I'm not saying pay the house for these picks, but again, on the other side, if somebody's offering me something and it's like kind of a half-ass trade, and like, why would I do it? Why would I do it? You have to convince them. So look for team needs, make it a good offer right away, because nobody wants to go back and forth, and shoot your best shot right away. I know people say start low, but it's kind of annoying at times. So those are just some of the tidbits there. But on the flip side of things, if you do have a lot of picks, you just said some guy had the whole first round.
Almost. Like, I swear to God, he had 5 picks in the first round. And I was like, you jerk. You've been like plotting this for like 3 years.
Yeah, and I see it too. Or people that actually make the moves, like in this league this weekend, I have the first 3 in a 1 quarterback league that I made moves for. But for those people that have the picks, what's your advice to them when people are knocking on their door, banging on their windows, shooting them texts, FaceTiming them? What's your advice to people who might be selling picks? Do you have any advice for that category?
Just remember, they are worth something, so do not get lowballed for them. Make sure you are getting them for the value that they are worth, because rookie picks are, like I said before, like they're gold. And sometimes it doesn't seem that way because it's hard when we're the way that we are. It's hard to see numbers and look at it and be like, oh, look at the value there. And while you see names like Saquon Barkley, but just don't get lowballed for it either, because it doesn't seem like a lot at that moment. But I promise you're going to feel that when the pick comes up. It's worth more than you think.
Absolutely. I mean, if you can take some veterans that are not almost aging out in a trade, sure. But at the same time, last year, if we listed out the JT, the Swift, the Gibson, the Dobbins, the CeeDee Lamb, and we can just go down the list, Justin Jefferson. There's a lot of guys that are extremely valuable in Dynasty. So what I would say, if you are selling these picks, is first off, I'd wait till draft day. Because when the clock starts, people get ambitious with these trades. Yeah, I mean, literally, we were at this guy's house. Or it was this guy. It was my brother's house. We were at my brother's house last weekend. And there was a lot of people just on the spot. I'm going to give you this, this, and this. It was their best offer because there was a clock and it was done. So I'd say wait until that rookie draft, because again, you want to see who falls and things like that. But people in the heat of the moment are going to send their better offers versus 3 weeks before you draft, and they're not really putting thought into it,
Right.
So,
and they've had like 5 years at that point. So you could usually get something good out of them once they have had a couple of Coronas.
Yeah, exactly. You're getting some good players plus some money for next year. I don't know what the case is, but yeah, good advice all around. It's literally draft season for either startups or rookie drafts. So it's important to go about these the right way, because for Dynasty, this is what's setting you up for the next 2, 3, 5, 7 years. Good points all around, Stephie. We'll end up wrapping things up here. Before we close out the show, though, Stephie, what is coming up for you? Because I know nonstop. I doesn't matter what time of the day it is. I'll be at work. I'll be I don't know, at the gym or something, and I'll go on Twitter real quick, and you're live or you're doing something. So what's coming up for you?
So I will be expanding my role a little bit with FTN. So some fun things coming up in the future with them. I'm going to hop off here and finish recording Small Talk for this week. That'll drop tomorrow. Had a little bit of delays with that this week. And then, doing my guests, starting to limit them a little bit, with the season approaching, I you have to at least, I'm in so many leagues too. I'm going to need time to set my own rosters, and I can't give advice unless I'm playing the game as well. So looking forward to redraft season, to be honest. I am. I love my redraft. But just the normal stuff. Everything I do is always on Twitter at Stephie Smalls with 3 L's. I'm loving this show. Very excited about it to continue forward, especially once the season starts.
Absolutely. So again, play on words. I didn't cover it. My last name is Skrip. And I heard Lil Wayne in some songs. He's like, I'm sticking to the script. So I like script. So it's like the script to ships. So championship. So Stephie and I literally are coming on here every Thursday talking to you guys about how to optimize your fantasy, teams, your thoughts, and our opinions on fantasy talk in general. We talk redraft, we talk dynasty, we talk NFL news. So that's our whole motto here, is just script to ships. We're trying to help you guys win some championships. So thank you to everybody who listened live. We'll be back at it again next Thursday. Myself just doing some random content throughout the week, and live here and there outside of the show as well. So again, thank you guys for listening. Stephie, appreciate you as always, and have a nice night.
Catch y'all.